I've decided to start a new life without you. Those 7 simple words spoken loud felt heavy and final. They hung in the air of the upscale restaurant, a stark contrast to the celebratory atmosphere that had just moments before enveloped the room. We were gathered there for such a joyous occasion, a milestone marking the end of one journey and the beginning of another for someone we love dearly. Gregory, my husband of 28 years, stood frozen, his champagne glass still raised midair. He had been poised to make a toast, a proud father's speech celebrating his daughter Amelia's college graduation. His face, usually a mask of confident control, now held a startled, almost comical expression. His announcement completely displacing the prepared words for his daughter's achievements. The shock rippled outwards through the room. The cheerful clinking of silverware against china ceased abruptly. Lively conversations died on people's lips, halting mid-sentence. An expectant silence fell over the 50 or so guests who had come to share this special evening with us. All eyes now riveted on the unfolding drama at our table. 50 pairs of eyes darted back and forth between Gregory and me, wide with anticipation. They were waiting for the predictable reaction, for the tears, the shouting, the dramatic exit they expected from a woman whose world had just been publicly shattered. Instead, I met their gaze with a calm, deliberate smile. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said, my voice steady and clear, cutting through the silence. "My name is Bianca Caldwell. I am 54 years old. And for nearly 3 decades I had been playing the role of the devoted wife and mother, putting my own dreams and ambitions perfectly on hold. I had sacrificed my own career aspirations to support Gregory through 3 shaky business ventures, 2 rather traumatic career changes, and countless prolonged periods where he was supposedly finding himself. While he pursued his passions and indulged his whims, I was the constant, the anchor, the one ensuring our family stayed afloat. I raised our brilliant daughter, Amelia. She was sitting right beside me now, her graduation cap still perched precariously on her head. Her usually bright, expressive face was pale, frozen in an expression of pure horror and disbelief. My heart ached for her in that moment, but I knew this was unavoidable. From the corner of my eye, I could also see Cassandra Wells, Gregory's much younger girlfriend, was seated uncomfortably at a table in the back, shifting in her seat. She was surrounded by people I had considered my closest friends for decades. The same friends who had apparently knew about Gregory and Cassandra for months, yet had never thought to tell me. Their silence was as damning as Gregory's words. This was the same Cassandra who had attended our holiday parties, laughing in our home, sharing meals at our table, the same woman who had once called me, seeking my professional advice about her own career path in marketing just a year ago. The hypocrisy of it all was almost unbearable, but I kept my composure. With a practiced calm that came from years of suppressing my own emotions, I reached into my handbag. My fingers closed around a sealed cream-colored envelope I had placed there earlier that morning. It felt heavy with significance, the culmination of months of quiet work and planning. I pulled the envelope out and placed it gently, precisely beside Gregory's plate tints. His gaze dropped from my face to the envelope, his triumphant expression dissolving completely, replaced by confusion and a flicker of fear. "What's this?" he stammered, his voice losing its earlier confidence. "Something for you to read later," I replied, keeping my voice steady, allowing no hint of the turmoil churning inside. I then turned back to Amelia, reaching out to touch her hand and offer a reassuring smile. I kissed her cheek. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," I said, focusing solely on her. "This day is still about your accomplishment." Then, I stood up fully, smoothed the front of my dress, and addressed our stunned guests once more. My voice clear and carrying across the silent room. "Please enjoy your meal," I said. "I wish you all a lovely afternoon." With those final words, I turned and walked out of the restaurant. I held my head high, acutely aware of the 50 pairs of eyes following my exit. The heavy door swung shut behind me with a decisive thud, cutting off the shocked silence and the tentative beginning of anxious murmurs outside. I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Outside, the thick Augusta summer heat hit me like a physical wall. After the air-conditioned restaurant. But instead of feeling suffocated, I welcomed it. The humidity clung to my skin. The sun felt warm on my face. For the first time in years, since before I started my meticulous planning, I felt like I could breathe freely. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door burst open again, followed by the sound of it slang shut. Then Gregory's voice, no longer just confused, but high-pitched and frantic, filled the air. "Bianca, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I kept walking towards my car, not turning back, allowing myself a small private smile that reached my eyes. The cream-colored envelope I handed him back inside didn't just contain the culmination of his public announcement. It held the beginning of my carefully orchestrated revenge, one I'd been planning, in quiet secrecy, for months. I had always been the practical one in our marriage, the grounded counterpoint to Gregory's impulsive dreams, while he chased one big idea after another. Taking financial risks that often didn't pay off, I was the one who managed our money, ensured the bills were paid, and built our security brick by painstaking brick. It was this practical nature that first raised the alarm. 3 months ago, I noticed small, seemingly insignificant discrepancies in our joint bank accounts. There were small transfers, amounts just large enough to be annoying if they were mistakes, but not large enough to immediately trigger suspicion in someone less attentive to an account I didn't recognize. Having spent over 20 years as the primary manager of our family finances, navigating Gregory's sometimes erratic business ventures, these irregularities didn't just seem odd, they stood out to me like glaring red flags. My intuition, honed by years of being the steady hand, told me something was seriously wrong. I could have confronted Gregory immediately, demanding an explanation. But something held me back. Perhaps it was the weariness of decades of conflict, or perhaps it was the growing emotional distance that had become a chasm between us over the past year. Whatever the reason, I chose a different path. Instead of confronting him, I began quietly investigating. What I discovered, hidden away in digital statements and online portals, was far worse than I had initially imagined. Gregory had been systematically moving funds from our joint accounts to a separate account for over a year. The trail of transactions revealed a double life. He had been taking Cassandra to expensive restaurants, purchasing jewelry, and even looking at beachfront property in Savannah, all while complaining to me about needing to tighten our belts and save for retirement. It was a betrayal on multiple levels, both emotional and financial. The final piece of evidence came unexpectedly. Gregory, in his carelessness, left his phone unlocked on the coffee table. I saw a series of text messages between him and Cassandra, messages detailing their future together, how he was finally breaking free, and chillingly, their plans for the day after Amelia's graduation. It was there, in those cold digital words, that I saw his plan. He would wait until after Amelia's big day, then announce his departure, presumably believing I would be too devastated and blindsided to react effectively. He thought he was being strategic, minimizing the public mess. But what Gregory had completely overlooked, or perhaps never fully grasped, despite 28 years of marriage, was my own ability. I had been a financial professional for 30 years before I even met him. I didn't just manage our money. I understood money trails, legal structures, and how to trace assets with meticulous precision. And most importantly, I remembered the original agreement we had signed 28 years ago. Gregory had insisted upon it then, wanting to protect his meager business, earnings from my family's inherited wealth. He saw it as his shield, a way to protect his future prosperity. That very document, signed when he had next to nothing, and I had everything, contained a fidelity clause. A clause stating that, in the event of infidelity, the shared assets would be divided based on contribution, heavily favoring the non-offending party, and that the clause remained in effect for the duration of the marriage plus any resulting legal actions. It was the key I needed. While Gregory plotted his escape with Cassandra, believing he had covered his tracks, I was building my case in silence. I consulted with the sharpest divorce attorneys in the state. I carefully recorded every hidden transfer, every lavish expense, every damaging message. I gathered solid evidence of their affair and his financial deception. I prepared the divorce papers, timing their delivery perfectly. He wanted to wait until after Amelia's graduation to avoid ruining her day. Fine. I would serve him on her graduation day before his planned announcement, but with the papers filed and safely hidden in the court records not yet publicly accessible. Gregory didn't know it, but I was always 3 steps ahead. The envelope contained the formal start of my divorce filing, backed by proof of his infidelity and financial misconduct. His planned public announcement became his most expensive mistake.